So we are presenting today on merchandise, expanding your brand beyond the bar. Hopefully we can get through without too many Zoom and tech snafus. Want to talk to you about our agenda today. So first, introduce our esteemed panel. I'm grateful for both Chloe and Jeff for taking their time today to hang out with us. Jeff's going to walk you through kind of understanding the business, broad overview of all the details, as I assume most of us joining in today are in the bar and restaurant business, and it's quite a bit different. E-commerce, certainly learning curve there, a lot of different ways, methodologies, and aspects to understand and approach. Chloe is going to talk to us about translating your brand, and really through all of this, we're going to use Death & Co. kind of as a case study. And we'll make sure to leave time for Q&A. Speaking of which, would love to know and just see in the discussion or in the chat box as you're joining, just type in where you're joining from. Love to know who's with us today and where around the world everyone is, since unfortunately can't be together down in New Orleans, hanging out at the Carousel Bar, or any of the other late night haunts that we find ourselves at. Panama City, Panama, beautiful. Great, so as I said, gonna introduce our panel. Jeff Combs, I'm fortunate enough to work with Jeff. Jeff owns a company called Craftwork, he'll tell you a little bit about. Jeff is really kind of our third party, jack of all trades solutions company. When we knew we wanted to approach the world of retail, we knew we needed help. Completely different business. We needed help understanding it and also help with the ad optimization, managing the site, the fulfillment, actually shipping things out, the production of all of this. Jeff does all of this and more and runs his company out of Southern California, and he'll tell you plenty more about it. Chloe, have the great fortune to work with. She's our lead designer with MFG, which is the design group that we currently have on board, bringing our brand to life, or kind of bringing fresh life into our brand. And she's going to talk to you, like I said, about their specific approach and how they've kind of been thoughtful, understanding what is almost a 15-year-old brand with Death & Co. and contextualizing that for new designs, new merch, new wear. And a lot of the stuff that Chloe's working on is going to be coming online soon onto the Death & Co site, so you guys will get a preview of some of that work. And then I'm David Kaplan. I own Death & Company. I'm the CEO of the parent company, Gin & Luck. I started Death & Co years ago now, like I said, almost 15 years ago. And we've grown from one location in New York to 3. Now we're open in Denver. And have massive operation there inside the Ramble Hotel, breakfast, lunch, dinner. So relatively similar to this, we had to think, what is the Death & Co brand for breakfast and how does it look there? And what is the Death & Co brand when it comes to outdoors? Because we have a beautiful bar there called The Garden. How does it translate? And kind of took a relatively similar approach that Chloe will be talking about in terms of the brand itself and bringing merch to life. And we're coming at you from all over the place. Jeff is in Southern California. Chloe is, I guess also in California as well. And I'm talking to you from Jackson Hole, Wyoming today. A beautiful fall day. Great. So Jeff, I'm going to hand it over to you and take us through kind of understanding the business.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Jeff Combs. I'm with a company called Craftwork Design Co., which I started about 4 years ago. And Dave, if you want to kick us over to the next slide, I'm just going to give a high level of what it is that we do and what we're fortunate to be able to do in terms of providing services to Dave and the Death & Co. brand. We're a creative design e-commerce agency. And so a little unique in that we focus our services on working with various brands, consumer brands, across multiple categories in the beverage space, entertainment, consumer goods space, etc. And we provide a full list of things that we do on behalf of the brand to try to grow and monetize the brand, to try to grow and expand consumer engagement, audience size, and to monetize the brand through product sales digitally. So it's a digital retail e-commerce services business that we operate here. And so I've listed the individual services that we provide in a very consolidated fashion. And then we're going to go through some of the specifics of these design efforts. Some of these services efforts as it relates to Death & Co. in just a second. But before I get there, we'll start with design. When we speak of design, you can go back actually. When we speak of design, we speak of design in a couple of ways. One is creative design and graphic design for digital experiences, whether it be websites, an e-commerce shop, or promotional assets or social assets that we use to promote an experience. And then design can also, as we look at it, relate to product design and designing concepts for products. And that's going to be something that Chloe speaks to when we get a little further down the road in this presentation. But the design is really the beginning and the starting point for us around the individual brands that we work with. And then that kind of transitions into development. And when we speak of development, we're speaking of product. We're speaking of product development to help drive the monetization of the brand. And that could be soft goods. It could be hard goods. Knowing specifically who your consumer is, who you're targeting to, what your brand represents, the types of products and categories you want to be in are all key things that you want to consider when you're looking at development. Are you developing on a specific type of blank or product? Are you sourcing domestically, internationally? All of those things will be things that you'll want to think about when you get into the development phase. And then e-commerce. What platform, what shop, what experience are you developing on? How are you managing it? And how are you executing that e-commerce experience to drive as much qualified traffic and conversion as you can through that e-commerce experience? So you'll need to be thinking about that. And in an effort to get the best traffic to your site, marketing your site. And you can do that through a couple of different ways. There's email channels, there's social marketing, there's paid marketing, there's retargeted marketing. There's several different marketing efforts that you can focus on to help you drive awareness and conversion through your official e-commerce site. And one of the things that really helps the effectiveness of your marketing is lifestyle content and shooting your brand in the right aesthetic, shooting high quality content that will help boost the performance of your marketing efforts and help generate the kind of traffic that you're looking to drive to your e-commerce site. And then if you're successful in doing all those things, you'll need to fulfill. So you'll need a warehouse, a receiving, and a pick, pack, ship service provider that can fulfill and execute the customer service in the back end to ensure that you've got an end-to-end solution that serves your consumers at the level that you so desire. And then analytics. You need to know what's performing, what's working, and what's not, having goals that you're measuring against and challenging yourself to achieve and working as a group to accomplish so that you can continue to grow and scale your business. So we are an organization that does all of these things, works very closely with our partners to build out these experiences, leveraging these services that I just went through. So with that, Dave, you can take us to the next slide. This is the Craftwork Manifesto. These are the 8 building blocks to scaling and growing an optimized e-commerce business. I've been in this space for 15 plus years and worked with dozens and dozens of different brands across a lot of different categories. And I've seen a lot of really great brands do a lot of really amazing things, but few are able to truly execute on all levels. And when they're not executing, or if they're missing one of these particular items, and to the degree they miss it, that really can impact their business and it really can stunt their growth or performance. So this may seem pretty basic, but if you can build a plan that allows you to manage this and provide these services all in unison at a high level, you're going to put yourself in a position to succeed, and you're actually going to position yourself ahead of what most brands are actually capable of doing. So we start with creative design, having the right design and designing the right products for your brand and for your audience is kind of step one when you get started. When you're able to create really good, compelling product, it helps you to generate and even create better content. And when you can create when you create elevated product and produce inspiring content, it allows you to have better and more impactful promotion. It allows you to engage the audience better through all of your direct marketing channels. And so product helps content, content helps drive really good, effective promotion. And the better your promotion, the better your product, the better your content, the more qualified traffic you're going to drive to your site experience. And when I say qualified traffic, I'm really speaking to people that have a purchase intent, people that are excited about your brand and that product or that promotion that they have seen, and they're reacting. Their behavior is being changed by what you put in front of them, and they're coming to your site interested and more likely to purchase than they would be otherwise. So if you do all of those things together well, you're going to get qualified traffic to a site. But if they get to a site that's not optimized, that doesn't hold the same values and doesn't present the same product at the same level and the same content and the same performance on the site, then you're going to get drop off and you're not going to be optimized. So if you have a optimized shop, you're going to convert more of that traffic. And when you do that, then you have the opportunity to provide a really good consumer experience. And if you can fulfill orders accurately and timely, and you can brand and create some personalization there to whatever extent you can, you're going to separate yourself from just a standard vanilla package landing on your doorstep that looks the same as any Amazon package that's arrived. And when people receive those, or if there's any special personalized effort that you can make, it really does create that loyalty. And if you do all of these things really well, your chance of creating greater loyalty and repeat purchases has been elevated. So at a high level, these things are really key to do well all at the same time. It's what we work very hard every day to do on behalf of Death & Co. And I think that our combined effort has allowed us to grow and scale the business over the past year since we've launched the shop. All right, so with that, product development. We spent a lot of time developing product for Death & Co. We started off with a pretty strong mix of soft goods and apparel, and we've been able to determine and really build our strategy out around that. But hard goods and creating items such as at-home cocktail kits, really kind of to look at where we're at in the world today and recognize that people are at home. And so creating products that kind of speak to the lifestyle and the situations that we're at today, being very strategic on that level, creating collectibles, doing things that will serve the business and the brand and consumers today is something that we're constantly looking at doing. Once you figure out the types of products and designs, it's a matter of working with, finding vendors, sourcing products, defining your buys, and really putting a product strategy together where you're maximizing your product margin, which is where you're going to drive the profitability in the business. But we'll be speaking more to this, and Chloe will be speaking more to how they've done the design and build the strategy around the Death & Co. collection as we move forward here. So product design or product development is key. Once you've got the product, creating content, again, as I mentioned previously, is highly important. And we spend a lot of time shooting content on behalf of Death & Co. And we're constantly working in bar environments. We're really aspiring to work with professionals in this space and to get the setting that fits the aesthetic of the brand appropriately, that lives alongside the rest of the wonderful content that Death & Co. projects on a daily basis, to be able to try to work with the Death & Co. team to ensure that our copy and our messaging is consistent with the brand. Producing promotional assets, whether they be email campaigns or paid social ads or social posts or stories that really reach and exceed or at least meet the level of aesthetic taste that the brand represents is a constant goal of ours. But having fresh content is a key, and we try to shoot around each product drop, each holiday, each key item. We're constantly scheduling out and producing photo shoots around to maintain a fresh assortment of assets that we can use. So getting to know the brand and getting to a level where we can produce consistent content is critical, and it really will help you differentiate yourself from other brands. It really will be the key reason people stop scrolling look at your brand, look at your product, and actually move to do something. It's a great way to acquire consumers and pull them into your brand if you can capture them through content, through the digital marketing channels that everybody seems to be active in today, and we certainly are for Deaf & Co. as well. Okay, so then once you have the content, you have to be positioned to create really compelling promotional assets. And these are just a couple quick examples, but a cocktail journal that we developed, and shooting it, appropriately, shooting it in a way that is aesthetically pleasing and captures attention, but then allows people to engage and move into and click through an email or click through an ad to a destination. So, the key is to create that content that's engaging, that moves and provokes behavior from consumers that'll want to explore further. And so we're doing that through product, we're doing that through content, and then from a marketing perspective, you have to be very strategic in the channels that you're operating in. And I'm going to show you an example of a promotional calendar here in a minute, but a promo calendar is really critical for developing a growing and robust e-commerce business. It aligns all of the key stakeholders on what product is landing, how much time do we need to shoot and create the promotional assets and the content, how much time do we need to set up the product in the shop, and when are we launching these to have the most impact and to be the most impactful or effective from a product standpoint. And so coordinating all of those things often takes multiple people working on those, but doing it in a defined, organized manner allows you to achieve the best performance possible. So depending on what marketing channels you're active in, whether it's just organic social posts and stories, or email campaigns if you're capturing consumer data, or paid social, etc., all of those things done in unison around a single promotion have proven to be most effective for us and the Deaf & Co. business. Thank you, Dave. And so paid campaigns. We've activated paid funded campaigns, and Deaf & Co. has given us a monthly budget to manage against. And so we prioritize the products that are performing the best, and we spend a significant amount of time doing audience segmentation and looking at what behaviors and what audience members and what audience types we should be targeting. And we test these paid funded ads to see how much engagement we can get. And we do a couple of different types of campaigns. One is prospecting, where we're engaging new consumers, people who have similar interests to the people that have proven to purchase or are following the brand currently. And then once we attract those consumers, we then can actually market to them after the fact. After we've gotten a reaction from them, we can market them to something very specific based upon what they may have clicked on. And that's called a conversion campaign. And so we leverage conversion campaigns to actually take that interested traffic visitor and turning them into a consumer. And we spend our money very diligently here, but it drives a meaningful amount of the revenue for the brand. And I'll show you some examples of some of that reporting in a minute. But having some sort of paid funded campaign will allow you to expand your acquisition reach beyond the existing organic traffic that you're getting to your site or through your own social or email. So it's a critical thing that if you can fund, I would highly recommend it. And so getting that traffic to a destination that is visually appealing, that's created intelligently and has best practice kind of logic built into it is critical, so that whatever the product or item that was featured in a promotion is there waiting for a consumer once they get to the site, and they can quickly react and drill into a product detail page, get all the information that they need, or make a quick purchase. You don't want to get in the way, and you want to make sure that your experience is at the level of everything else that you put out there in the world. So managing an e-commerce site and maintaining freshness and having that calendar where you're dropping new products and updating your sliders and refreshing your homepage and updating your copy and constantly managing your site is going to help you drive higher conversion. So that's a critical thing. Daily site merchandising is another key service aspect that you'll want to account for when you build out your shop experience. And then once we get a transaction, and we've moved a consumer from somebody that's been a passive consumer or a fan of the brand or never heard of the brand through the e-commerce purchase funnel. And we moved them through compelling product and content and a compelling offer and a timely offer and strategic marketing. And we've gotten them to a site that has embraced them and enabled them to purchase an item and complete a transaction. Then you've got the opportunity to make an impact on the fulfillment. And if you screw it up here, then you get a consumer who is unhappy, and it could put a bad taste in their mouth, and it could undo all of the great things you've done leading up to this. So it's critical that you treat this with a priority. Some brands just outsource this and they don't really manage this part of the business. However, it can be incredibly detrimental if it's not done properly. And while no third party or fulfillment house is perfect, it's key that you really do focus and prioritize accuracy, and that you're prepared to do something to go above and beyond to make good on any mistakes that are made. But getting an item and getting a package out there that has some level of personalization, it shows some level of effort and thought towards that consumer does go a long way. We often get consumers who will post their packages and say, oh, sweet, look at this, and make note of it and tag us on social, and all of those things that come from the consumer unprovoked just have greater weight, and it really does help, and it's something we take a lot of pride in. So don't neglect the consumer once they've purchased, and I would go beyond that, even send out offers and specific email and campaign offers to consumers who have shown loyalty and purchased in the past as well. But prioritize good fulfillment, accurate fulfillment, quality customer care, and a branded experience on the packaging side. Okay, so as I mentioned before, goal setting is key, and it can be somewhat difficult to do this out of the gate if you haven't run or managed an e-commerce business in the past. And so what I typically do, and what Dave and I did when we sat down, was we looked at your traffic and we looked, say, you get this amount of traffic a month. We think we can increase it X amount through our coordinated marketing efforts. We think we can increase it even more with some paid advertising and marketing. And then of that traffic, we think we can convert X amount, 1.5%, 2%. We think that we can generate an average order value, AOV, of $50 or $60 or $70 a transaction. And so we do some modeling, and I've been in the business for a while, so I lean on some of the things that I've seen and learned, and we've created an initial model, and it held true for the first year, up until I think during the holidays, it may have fallen off a little bit. But what you're looking at here is our actual reforecasted model for 2020. And as you can see, with COVID, it started to really grow in March. It took off to $18,000 in total revenue in March, and then it went from $18,000 to $42,000. So we've seen just a significant amount of growth in these trying times as we doubled down our efforts to engage in the community around products that would be applicable to the times, and we really just focused on specific exclusive items and a few other things that we'll share with you as well. You can see here that the revenue has gone up to as high as 42, 43, 34, 30. We've reforecasted, and I think our original stretch forecast was a couple of $100,000 for the year, and we are at our run rate to exceed $400,000 for the year in our first full year, which is actually quite mind-blowing and something that I'm proud of, and I think it speaks to the Deaf & Co. Brand. We've worked with a lot of global, large, leading brands in the past that have not grown this fast, and this is the first bar that we've worked with, and they've really led the way and been very focused and committed to testing and trying and investing in the product, investing in marketing, investing in content, and really been great supporters, which is, it's going to be needed for anybody to be successful. They're going to have a plan. They're going to have to try to execute it. So this is a pretty solid success story right out of the gate, and it's really only the beginning. But without question, we're on pace to hit 400,000 in this year one. So I mentioned the promo calendar earlier. This is just a Google Sheet promo calendar template that we've put together. And this outlines the various products that are coming, that are landing, when we need to shoot them, when we need to ready the catalog, when we're actually going to drop them. It has sections in it where Jeff and Co. And some of our teammates there can input the messaging and the copy. So we've got strategic copy written effectively for each particular event or product mentioned. It outlines the marketing channels we're going to highlight or launch in. It manages and it just really weaves in everything here. And it allows us to manage this business and execute it as if we were all in the same room and we're literally spread all across North America doing this. But this thing here to me is the blueprint. And if any one thing I said was, if anyone asked me the one thing that's most important, I would say the promo calendar. Because without it, I think you're just going to be a little bit lost. It ties in everything that you do. It ties in the product, which you have to have the product to sell. It ties in the site readiness and merchandising. It ties in the content. It ties in the promotional assets, and it ties in the marketing campaigns and the social support. So it's all woven in here, and this is kind of the focal point of what we do on a daily basis. And then once we're in business and we're actively managing through it, how is it performing? What is it that's working? And this is an example of a KPI report. We have them weekly, and it tracks the performance. We have weekly forecast, monthly, and then a year to date. And it tracks where we're at in a given month. This happens to be from May of this year, and it was a huge month where we did 25,000 in revenue in 1 week, which is almost unheard of. We did 43,000 in that month. So I guess I picked a good one, but this really does outline the performance, and it speaks to what's working in that given month, what campaigns are working, how the traffic is performing, how revenue is increased, how AOV is performing, etc. But it holds us accountable, and not every KPI report, is all green. Some are red, and if they're red, we have to figure out what is it that we can do, and how do we manipulate the business or change our behavior or try a new strategy to impact the performance in a given week or in a given month, and how do we do better in the next month? So KPI performance and tracking is key. So having a forecast, having goals, being able to track your performance is key. And then I mentioned paid marketing earlier, and paid marketing has been a big boost to this business. And the spend on a monthly basis has been relatively conservative at around $500, which is fairly low. But we focused it around some key iconic product that is an exclusive product. One of them is their ceramic mugs. That's a pirate mug that's been a big seller. And we've been very effective at executing paid marketing campaigns with this particular featured item. And if I won't get into all of the detail on this, but this particular report outlines what our AOV targets are and what our actuals are and how much we've spent and how much profit is in what was generated. And the high level on this beauty is that we spent $547. We actually generated $9,655 in revenue in this particular month, and $4,281 of that was profit after you pull the cost of the product and the amount that we spent on the ad. So our return on ad spend was 17.65, which is ridiculously good, and not all of our brands are at that level, but it just shows that when you get really good, an amazing brand, coupled with really good product, really good content, and very targeted marketing strategy, that you can produce meaningful results that are really driving this business. And so it's been a pleasure, and it's been highly exciting to be able to do these things, test these things out, and deliver these services in partnership with Jeff & Co. and MFG on this business. So hopefully this outline is giving you some things to think about as you put your strategies together to monetize your brand in ways that you can get to market. And with that, I think we're going to transition this back to Dave and get Chloe involved. Dave,
Thank you so much. Appreciate you calling me out there. Thanks so much, Jeff. I appreciate it. Not sure if everyone can see the PDF slideshow or the slideshow we're going through. Certainly happy to share it afterwards for any of those who can't see it. It's a lot. It's a whole different business. But with that, I would love to hand it over to Chloe. Well, one thing first, if you guys have any questions throughout, jot them down. If we don't get to them right away, then we can scroll through and we'll make sure to have time for during the Q&A. And first, before we transition over to Chloe, I'll just ask, and you guys can throw it in the chat box and we'll read it when it gets time for the Q&A. But please let us know if you are currently selling any merch, and if you're selling merch at your bar or online or both. We'd love to know that. So with that, Chloe, I'll hand it over to you, and you can take us through really translating your brand from the materials that may exist to merch and saleable items.
I am. It was not working. Here we go. All right.
And I think you're on mute now.
Alrighty, so I am a designer at MFG Creative Co, and we've worked alongside Death & Co and Craftwork to create their new and improved merch line. MFG specifically is a multidisciplinary design studio, so we do anything from experiential to digital to physical. But there's a range of design companies out there that are exclusive to merch or exclusive to soft good design, but we specifically are more of a wide range company. So that's where my background is coming from. And with the Death & Co brand, they obviously had a strong thing going for them with their current merch line, but I'll just take you through all of the considerations, whether you have a merch line or not already. There's kind of the same considerations and steps you take to be able to create a successful line for your consumers. So those considerations are an assessment of your current brand elements. So that's going to entail figuring out what elements you want to bring into the merch. So is it just the logo, or do you want to add more elements to the merch that don't necessarily show up in your current brand? Second bullet is to establish your goal audience. So that would entail doing an assessment of your current audience. Is it satisfactory? Do you like it? Do you like the consumers that are coming to you for your product, or do you want to change that? Do you want to expand it? Do you want to flip it 180? Those are the kind of questions you ask when you're doing the audience audit. So then based on audience and your brand assessment, you can then go into the merchandise execution. And that's obviously just the most fun part of the design process. So you start from scratch, or start with what you already have, and start to execute things with whoever we're working with. In this case, it's MFG, Death & Co, and Craftwork. It's kind of nice to have these three entities involved, but I'd say more often than not, it's probably just, one or two as far as design goes. But, Craftwork pulls in a lot of their design knowledge as well. So we have a good team going there. So that's kind of, he talked a little bit about merchandise execution and fulfillment and all of those. And then once you've made the designs, you've done the brand assessment, you like what you have, then goes on to the second part of design, which, is, to me, at least when I started this project, was new, just going through blanks and trends. So blanks are picking the garments in which you want to put your designs on. And that can be considered the second step of design. So you really want to think about what blanks you're choosing and how they look on the audience you're going for. Thing to think about that's not always mandatory is collaborations. So are there any companies you can think of that can heighten your brand, that can bring hype to your new merch line, anyone that's going to be on your side? And then lookbooks and marketing is the last one. So once you've produced the merch, you have your thing on the tracks, then comes the lookbook. So how are you going to sell your product? How do you want your consumers to view it? How are you going to relate to them through photography, through how you're presenting the work? And I often think that lookbooks are essentially more important than the designs themselves, because that's when you're convincing your audience that this is what they want, this is who they are, and you're trying to reach those new audiences as well. So the lookbook and the product photography and all of those things are, really pivotal steps in the process to get your consumers to buy your product. Go to the next one. Yeah, so the Death & Co. crest and the whole, the brand itself is obviously a hospitality and drink brand. So the crest itself is something that is super prominent throughout the whole Death & Co. identity. And you can see it front and center on the book there. And then we also have the tiki mugs that Jeff mentioned. So the one on the left is the first product launch from Death & Co. that started with a specific design, and then they revamped it, relaunched it, and that was super successful. So the tiki mug kind of serves as like the pillar of the Death & Co. merch. And we wanted to use that as an example of like our goal. So we're hoping that, this new whole is going to reflect in a similar way to how the tiki mug did. So that's kind of our little inspiration point. So here for the next few slides, I'm going to go through how we at MFG worked with Death & Co. to reestablish the vibe of their brand and how we wanted to implement it into merch. So the first thing we did was the current brand assessment, as well as what goals we wanted to pair with that. So with the next couple slides, you'll see the top section of images is where we have the Death & Co. there. That is doing our brand assessment. And then the bottom section of images is what our goals are. How is that current brand going to fit into the look and feel that we want? So with the logo and collection, we wanted to use really big graphic typography and still stay true to this nice cursive that Death & Co. has come up with in their brand. So we decided to take the cursive and have that as a secondary element and introduce this new big graphic typography element. So we established these rules based off of the current brand assessment. And then we did the same thing with color. So with the color, you can see on the top there that the current Death & Co. Merch line, while it's super lovely, is all black and white with some little hints of maybe gold, and there were some blues in there. But we wanted to expand the audience. So yes, black and white is technically, able to reach every single audience who wouldn't wear a black and white t-shirt. But why not take that in the different direction and use a whole variety of colors that still speak to this kind of dark and muted style, but just provide a more fun, a wider range with opportunity for more people to enjoy. So with this slide here, it's important to note how, yes, black and white, we wanted to include that current look and feel in the new design, but just revamp it in a different way. So we're still kind of have the same goals here. We want it to be dark and moody and enticing, but we just wanted to execute that in a completely different way. Next one. Yeah, so again, current brand, we have the photography on the top. That's what they did for their lifestyle photography and the product shoots. And then the bottom was kind of our goal. So like I said, they had this dark thing going and we wanted to keep that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the photography style needs to be dark as well. So on the bottom, we're showing them here, like let's do some shoots outside. Let's make it more of a lifestyle brand as opposed to something you only wear while you're working at a bar or going to a bar. While that's an appropriate atmosphere to shoot the products in, let's expand that. Let's talk to more people. Let's talk to people who would, go drive around in this shirt, or who would go to their other job in this shirt and then go to Death & Co afterwards to enjoy a drink. So it's like thinking about all of those really nitpicky details of like, where does our consumer work? What's their lifestyle, and we want them to wear this wherever they're going. So that's the method of figuring out how to choose where and how to shoot your products. And here, the merch execution point is just, so you can kind of see on this slide that this is just how the past 3 slides wrapped up. So the past 3 slides you saw were essentially our audit. That's what we did. We worked with David and Craftwork to come up with these items, and those were all just mood board images. And then a couple rounds later, we get to the actual merch execution, and this is what that looks like. So you can see we're taking all these muted colors, figuring out how they can work with each other, looking at how to incorporate black and white as well. And then you can see here with the graphics that we stuck with that big graphic typography paired with some smaller elements on the side. So we stayed true to our goals. And here you're just seeing essentially what the proper execution looks like, of really paying attention to like, did we use all those colors we said we were going to use? Did we use all the elements we said we were going to use? And that's just what this looks like. So those previous slides were showing collection 1, like a sample of collection 1 from the new Death & Co merch revamp. And this one is showing collection 2. So, if you want to do something as extensive as we're doing multiple collections. So essentially you take all of those steps and you apply them to one visual direction. And so for this one, this is a completely different visual direction. So this is collection 2, and we wanted to use this. It's essentially inspired by the Vanitas still life, which is a style of like Renaissance painting. And we want to create a series of scenes with these little coded elements that could speak to specific drinks from the Death & Co. Book, or what you might experience when you go to the bar. What drink are you going to order, and what are maybe some famous, most popular drinks? And we wanted to incorporate that into a still life. So here you see like a little glass, lemon peel. There's like some little specific in here, and it's just kind of like I don't want to call it like an inside joke is the wrong word, but it is essentially like with us creating it, we're creating all these little nods that the consumer can kind of pick and choose and maybe like notice over time. So that was this collection, as opposed to doing like what I was talking about with the last one. We're doing a lot of type use. This is a lot of image use. So a completely different look and feel. And therefore, with that, when we move on to the other parts, such as we're going to get into the blanks on the next slide, obviously these blanks are going to look completely different than collection 1 blank. So you're taking those, each step of the process, and applying it to each different thing that you want to design. So when we're looking at blanks, you're looking at how your design is going to best fit on your consumer, and how do you want them to wear your design. So the previous slide, we were looking at black sweatshirt, and that's just kind of the baseline example of what we use for all of our presentations. And then the next step of the process is, once you've gone through the designs and you and your client have agreed upon what the graphic is, then we go on to choosing the blanks. And this is where researching trends come in, I would say. We never let trends inform our designs, but we rather let trends inform how we should style our designs, if that makes sense. And I think that's a really important point to consider, because you can get really lost in creating merch for your brand if you are really focused on trends and you're like, oh, everybody's wearing this, I want to create something that looks like this. Then you're not really going to create something that's true to your brand. So I'd say a good rule of thumb is to design first, and then when you're choosing how the garment needs to be worn, that's when you pay attention to trends. So right now we were, this mustard color is pretty trendy right now, and we also thought it would be a good pair with the complicated still life that's going on, is to just choose like a nice, warm, solid color. I'm not sure if we're actually pulling through with this, but this is just the thought process. And we come up with all of these images and find images from, for me personally, I look at sites that I want to buy stuff from, because I am like a similar, I am kind of part of that audience that we're going for. And, a lot of times with this kind of thing, it's important to look at what's popular, because that's what's going to sell most likely. So yeah, a lot of times blanks, super important. And then the next thing is lookbooks. So once you've done your blanks, your designs, then like I was saying earlier, the lookbook is probably the most important part. So if you think about that graphic I just showed with the still life, let's say we did just do it on a black t-shirt, and then we shot it on somebody sitting on a couch in a really dark room. That's going to be totally different than if we apply the graphic on a yellow t-shirt and do it and do the photography in a way like you see here, where there's like washes of color over all of the people. So on the left, you see there's kind of like a monochrome image going on with all of the green. That could make the shirt pop. There's also a lot of film photography on this slide. You can kind of pick some cultural icons. So in this case, we decided to pick Post Malone because he wears a lot of like super patterny things. So it's like showing your client, like, this is culturally relevant. This is what people want to see. They want to see like really loud patterns and lots of things going on. So this can be a really good way to establish your audience and speak to your audience. So it's not just the merch. It's like, where is the merch showing up? Who is it showing up on? How are they being presented? Are they casual? Are they formal? What kind of hairstyle do they have? And this is just it's just such an important way to like directly talk to the audience that you want to consume your product. And I think, yeah, now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chloe. I appreciate you taking us through all of that. I quickly wanted to talk about one other kind of opportunity that we found and added to our online store, which is just what we're calling experiences. So we started out doing this obviously as a response to the pandemic, and just looking for creative ways to connect with our guests. And the first thing that we offer, the first kind of range of experiences, and these are just a few of them, are almost like buying Death & Co. futures. So you're buying the commitment upon reopening, a 5-pack of priority reservations for 1 year, good for 1 year. And we sold a surprising amount of those. 2-hour cocktail class, something we do under normal circumstances, but obviously this is investing for people to have this or do this, execute it in the future. Martinis and matrimony, everyone had to postpone their wedding, obviously, so we thought that was cute. Some of these are PRable, and some, the 2000 and up, we thought were really kind of just fun and for press, and others we thought we would sell more of. We sold a lot of the priority reservations. And for us, as all of you guys know, any revenue is so significantly important, certainly while we were closed and still. One that kind of surprised us and we ended up selling a lot of, maybe close to 10 of, For $2,500, we had one where we created a cocktail for you. We worked with you to understand your palate. We created a cocktail for you with you. You got to name it, and it would appear on the Death & Co menu nearest you, whatever Death & Co location was near you. $2,500, and I think we sold like 10 of them. People were giving them as very expensive gifts. So again, kind of just a fun, interesting, creative opportunity. And we just recently launched our digital packages. So now you can have online cocktail classes, all live, all Zoom, and launching those this week, actually, I think, or we launched them last week. And I asked a question of all of you guys. I'll quickly go back. What cocktail did you think this was based off of? And Min got it right. Lay, lemon, coupe. It's a corpse reviver. So finding ways for your merch or your designs to tell a narrative, to have moments and elements of discovery similar to a bar experience, is really kind of the direction that we're starting to go. And what you've seen throughout this, we worked with one designer, fantastic designer, for kind of our early collections, and he really brought us quite a ways from the illustrations that we have that many of you are familiar with in the books and in the menus that were really hard to translate, surprisingly hard to translate to wearables and things of that nature. He brought us quite a ways and did some beautiful designs. And now we're working with Chloe and with MFG to, again, just start to dig in even deeper and even further. And how can we do more and have each of our designs be even more purposeful? Great. So I listed some resources for you guys here as well. Obviously, the bulk of these are just our sites, so you guys can see for MFG some of the work that they do, Craftwork, some of the services they do. And again, you don't need to work with a third-party group like Craftwork. I think it depends on your ambitions. We started out doing a relatively small amount of just fulfillment ourselves. It is a huge amount of work, and we could absolutely not get anywhere close to the goals and ambitions and numbers that we have without working with a specialized third-party group. And just the breadth of knowledge that Jeff and his team has is just staggering. So obviously, depending on where you're going, you can always start yourself. Shopify, building a Shopify site, incredibly easy to do. A lot of these steps you can take on yourself in the beginning, but as you grow and as you scale, there are professionals out there that can help work through this. Before we get to, I know we have a couple questions. I just want to throw this slide up here, and I'll leave it up while we get to questions. You're welcome to email any of us if you have any questions for any of the three of us. My email there at the bottom, also dave@deathandcompany.com, d.kaplan@ginandluck.com. And if you weren't able to see the presentation, I'll chat with the Tails team and see if we can post the PDF somewhere. Otherwise, email me and I'll send you the link to the PDF. Apologies, I don't have the link ready. Otherwise, I'd throw it in the chat box here. So with that, we'll get to some questions. And I'll click over to the Q&A, and there will still be some time to add some more. The question that I'm seeing here: when beginning a new element to your brand, whether it be clothing or notebooks or anything else, is there a minimum amount of offerings you should try to start with? I think that's a great question, probably for Jeff. We went pretty heavy. We started with a bunch of SKUs. I don't know if that's necessary, but
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know if there's a scientific answer for that. I think that having a collection that is, I think, stepping back and figuring out who is it that you're marketing to, and what product categories are going to serve that audience the best, is the best place to start. So if you feel that it's apparel is an easy barrier to entry, or a low barrier to entry. So apparel is an easy, not easy, but it is a fairly straightforward place to start, and you can create a more robust assortment at a lower cost point with soft goods than traditionally you can if you were to do some custom exclusive item, like for instance, maybe a tiki mug where there are minimums depending on what the item is. There are also models out there that exist in the apparel space that are on demand. So you can create designs and produce those on demand, so you're not developing all of the product and taking all of the inventory in-house. You're literally producing the products and the apparel as orders are processed and transacted, and we have an on-demand solution here. So that's an offering that can allow you to serve and open up a larger collection. I like even numbers on my product collection pages, so 6, 8, 10 is always a decent strategy just from a visual standpoint. But I would stay away from anything less than 6. If you're going to ask me a question, I would say less than 6. Or make me come up with a specific number. So there it is.
Thanks, Jeff. Another question I saw here, one other point that I think that brings up is, you know, a lot of this is going to, as you launch into merch or into your online store, any of this, a lot of it's going to depend with your starting budget. You know, we wanted complete control or as much control as possible. So we allocated funds to do this. We have inventory. We're always sitting on some inventory. Just like in our bars and restaurants, you work to manage that inventory, bring a new product, launch a new product, do sales on inventory that's going down and move through it. So it's not a capital light endeavor, but it's obviously not as capital intensive as building and opening your own bar. So all comes down to how much funds that you have to start with. I saw another question here. We saw a lot of merch focused on clothing in the presentation. I've also seen pins and patches from some bars. Do you guys know what other items are getting trendy? I think obviously this is a great question. Like Jeff said, it's relatively easy to start with soft goods, to start with clothing. We've found a lot of success with our brand in particular with our cocktail kits, and we worked really hard to source those, get them engraved nicely, and have them be very useful and up to our standard. The cocktail notebook, relatively easy to produce, relatively easy to customize, things like that. And that has sold pretty well for us. The custom mugs that we've done, as anyone knows in the ceramic mug or tiki mug space, those are just highly collectible, highly sought after, and really fun getting to work with an artist who's known in that space. We worked with Thor, yeah, I think those are the things that we've seen start to do exceptionally well. While having a healthy mix of soft goods and those lower price items as well. But it also really depends on your brand and what your brand is looking to do. You know, if you have a little bit more of a, I don't know, a little bit more of an approachable, fun, younger, like, you know, fixie bike or motorcycle bar, obviously patches and things that speak to like moto culture or bike culture are things that you're going to want to lean into so that you're speaking to your audience. And I think that's kind of the key, rather than kind of thinking about what's trendy. But it doesn't hurt to do things that are low price and easy, like pins. Are there any other questions? I think we have just 2 minutes left. Or Jeff, anything that you wanted to add before we close out? And then Chloe, I'll let you.
No, thank you everyone for your time. The one other additional product that's done well is the rocks classes, and having rocks classes that fit the brand, the aesthetic, and have done very well. So that's the one additional product that I would add to that list. Other than that, thank you everyone.
Great. Chloe, are you still with us? I'm not sure if you dropped off. Well, just on behalf of all three of us, well, first, thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate you guys spending your time, spending your day with us and educating the bar community on this thing that you do so exceptionally well. And I saw a shout out to my dogs, my guest hosts and back. Sorry if they were distracting, but that's working from home. Thank you guys so much. Have a great Tales. Wish we were all together down in New Orleans. Enjoy your day.